For the first time ever, a spy who worked for the Chinese Communist Party's secret police has spoken out about how the CCP operates overseas, and it's way worse than anyone imagined. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. If you thought Chinese dissidents could escape persecution by leaving China, think again. It turns out nowhere is safe. And how do we know this? Because for the first time, a former spy for China's secret police has come forward to reveal operations targeting dissidents overseas, even in Western countries, like Australia. The spy told his story to ABC News in Australia, which did a report and a documentary. The spy goes by the name of Eric. But for 15 years, Eric worked for the Political Security Protection Bureau, otherwise known as the First Bureau, which doesn't sound ominous at all. It's a secret unit of China's Ministry of Public Security, an organization that oversees both police and spies, which also doesn't sound ominous at all.
政保的话，他们就是兼具这两个功能，就有点像克格勃呀、斯塔西啊、盖世太保，他们既具有侦查的权利、搜集这些情报的权利，同时他们也有执法的权利。Today, it's still the darkest department of Chinese government.
This is the first time anyone from the agency has publicly spoken out. So why would anyone risk being caught up by the long arm of the CCP by exposing the long arm of the CCP?
Why are you doing this interview?
I believe the public has the right to know the secret world. There are some things I still believe, freedom and justice. So this thing gives me courage to make some different choice.
Wow. I have nothing to say to that. That guy has cojones of steel. Eric's belief in freedom and justice goes way back. Eric says he started off as a young university student who joined the China Social Democratic Party, a group that promotes democracy in China and the end of the CCP's rule. After he shared information about the party's annual meeting on social media, he was interrogated and forced to sign a document confessing to the crime of opposing the Chinese government. But don't worry, the CCP was merciful, at least more merciful than usual. Instead of going to jail, Eric was offered a second chance to be a spy for China. So you're saying my choice is spy or death. Can I have a moment? But this is what the CCP does. It uses people with dissident backgrounds like Eric to do its bidding. Eric did all sorts of things for the CCP. He infiltrated the pro-Tibetan movement, met with the Dalai Lama, and leaked confidential information about the Tibetan government in exile's China policy plans. He also executed entrapment schemes. One of his targets was political cartoonist Wang Liming, also known as Rebel Pepper. I've shared his work a lot. Rebel Pepper is a cartoonist whose political satire doesn't sit particularly well with the CCP. I have no idea why. Eric's job was to lure Rebel Pepper, who was living in Japan at the time, to Cambodia, where he could be arrested and returned to China. In order to get Rebel Pepper, Eric pretended to be a planning supervisor at a Cambodian corporation who wanted the cartoonist's help in designing logos. The company even used Rebel Pepper's designs at events, and Eric arranged for company members to pose with an inflatable version of the designs to make the whole scheme seem legit. These are the lengths the CCP is willing to go to make sure no one sees cartoons that make them look bad. Like this one. The CCP hates when they're shared. That's why I'm leaving a link to it below, so you know what not to share. Please don't share it. After showing off the company's use of his logos, Eric invited Rebel Pepper to an in-person job interview in Cambodia. Luckily, the cartoonist's wife suspected it was a trap. Rebel Pepper was lucky, but another Chinese dissident, Hua Yong, wasn't. I'll tell you what happened to him after the break. Welcome back. Hua Yong made a name for himself documenting Beijing's mass evictions of migrant workers and protesting the Tiananmen Square massacre. Depicted in this Rebel Pepper cartoon, the CCP would hate people sharing. Seriously, it would be a shame if people were to share this cartoon. In order to get close to Hua, Eric pretended to be someone who wanted to set up an overseas pro-democracy group and overthrow the CCP. To make his story look legit, Eric formed a fake anti-CCP militia called V Brigade, complete with promotional materials. Here's Eric dressed up as a militia leader and delivering a speech urging Chinese citizens to prepare for armed resistance and crochet adorable face coverings, apparently. Just because you're a revolutionary doesn't mean you can't be cozy. Eric maintained contact with Hua even after he claimed asylum in Canada. He fed his handler intelligence on Hua, including his phone number, address, where he went, and who he met. In November of 2022, Hua was found dead. Apparently, he died while kayaking alone, which wasn't suspicious at all. Actually, the sad thing is the Canadian police didn't find it suspicious. His death didn't even make the news. But get this. You know that fake V Brigade thing Eric created? Beijing security officials freaked out when they saw that. They thought it was real. That trap was so convincing that even Chinese police fell for it. Now that's some serious spycraft. Eric was told that he'd face arrest and that he had to return to China. Also that he had to give the stitch pattern for those masks. Seriously, they're just precious. Eric knew then that his time was up. So you're saying my choices are to be arrested by the Chinese police or try to escape to a foreign country? I know which one I'm going to choose. Eric decided to flee to Australia and surrendered himself to the Australian Security Intelligence Organization. And that's how we got the story. Also, it shows how dangerous China is when someone goes to Australia to feel safe. Australia? You know, the Florida of the Pacific? I highly recommend that you watch the ABC News documentary. The link is below. Although Eric is the first spy for the first bureau to speak out, his story is not the only information we have about Chinese foreign entrapment. Earlier this month, the French channel, France 2, also put out a damning report and documentary about China's transnational repression. It focused on an attempt to kidnap a Chinese dissident in Paris and fly him to southern Guangdong province. That plot involved Chinese embassy staff. They threatened the victim and coerced him to meet them at a Chinese restaurant that, strangely enough, had the same address as a place French authorities had identified as an illegal Chinese police station. Yeah, remember all those illegal Chinese police stations that were popping up around the world? Even in New York City? Fortunately, the dissident managed to escape at the airport, and airport staff were able to intervene. You know the CCP is evil when they make you think, thank God for airport security. China will do whatever it takes to get its way, often through violence, but also in more subtle ways. It's not above using families as leverage, using Chinese students abroad to stalk its enemies, and using fake reporters to infiltrate protest movements. This has a double effect of both keeping tabs on dissidents and sabotaging attempts to fight back against the CCP. Because how can you possibly know whom to trust? It's like a game of Among Us that never ends and got stale even longer ago. And the CCP is relentless. It will pursue those who cross it, even if it's been decades. For this reason, Chinese dissidents like Eric are in serious danger no matter where they are. That's why Eric's message to the world really resonates with me.
但是怎么说呢？在某种程度来说，对所有反对共产党、反对习近平的人们来说，可能真正的安全那一天，可能只有等到共产党倒台，中国变得更加民主和自由的那一天，可能他们才会真正的得到自由和安全。
Yes, that is 100% correct. People will not be safe as long as the CCP is in power. Of course, saying this really irks the CCP almost as much as this Rebel Pepper cartoon. Seriously, whatever you do, please don't share it. This is why Chinese state-run media has called China Uncensored disgraceful anti-China garbage. The CCP hasn't seen anything yet. I'll tease a bit that I've got a big project coming up, and I think you're really going to like it. That's why I need your support on the crowdfunding website, patreon.com/China Uncensored. All it takes is $1 or more an episode. I make about 16 episodes a month, but if that's too much for you, you can set a monthly limit. So you can ensure I can keep uncensoring China for even $1 a month. And as a thank you to everyone who gives on Patreon, I'll answer one of your questions at the end of these episodes. Today's question comes from Curtis Ryan. Is the current administration taking any real steps to track down and arrest any others operating illegal PRC police stations? That's a great question, Curtis. So I believe the final total was over 100 illegal Chinese police stations all over the world. And that's just the ones we know about. The US has been shutting them down and arresting some of the people involved. But the problem is those were just one piece of the broader CCP strategy of transnational repression. And the US does try to stay on top of it. Some were arrested for trying to coerce dissidents to return to China as part of Operation Fox Hunt. Then there was Operation Skynet. The problem is you can go after the individual programs, but unless you deal with the root cause, the CCP itself, there will always be something new. That's why the US can't treat China like a normal country, that we can work together despite some minor differences. Those minor differences being the CCP uses rape as a form of torture and harvests the organs of political prisoners. The goal must be the end of the CCP. Thanks for your question and your support, Curtis. And thank you for watching. Join Curtis on Patreon by clicking on that orange button. And here's a video I want to show you. Many on the far left will say religion is evil and should be banned. But have they considered the evils of science? Check out the latest episode of Deep Thoughts While Gaming for more. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.